Who is that?
Yeah, who are you?
Get your gear together. We all got 10 minutes.
On the next episode of Dutton Ranch.
Jacksons are gonna chew you up, spit you out. Forget you ever had a name.
You give me a week, I'll know everything there is to know about Peel Jackson.
Rip and Beth have secrets, and people with secrets can be useful.
How about you and I speak truthfully?
Nobody saw this coming. For episodes of building something real. For episodes of Beth and Rip clawing their way back from nothing, planting roots in Texas soil, refusing to let the past bury them. And just when it looked like the universe might finally let them breathe, it all gets ripped apart. Again. But this time is different. This time it was never an accident. Episode 5 of Dutton Ranch opens in a way that feels immediately, unmistakably wrong. The atmosphere has shifted. The air is heavier. And if you have been paying attention since the very first episode, you already know that the disaster unfolding on this ranch was never about bad luck or bad timing. It was engineered, piece by piece, move by move, by someone who was always 10 steps ahead. The cattle outbreak that exploded in episode 3 and spread through episode 4 like wildfire through dry grass was not a tragedy. It was a weapon. And the bull they brought home from that auction was not a sick animal that wandered onto their property by chance. It was planted. Someone put it there deliberately. Someone who had been watching Beth and Rip long before they ever signed the papers on that land. Someone who knew exactly how much this ranch would mean to them and decided that was precisely why it needed to be taken away. And now, heading into episode 5, Beth finally knows. The real story is far darker than anyone realized. Her name is Beulah. And she is unlike any enemy Beth Dutton has ever faced. Every villain Beth has gone up against in her life made the same fatal mistake. They underestimated her. They came at her loud and obvious, and she destroyed them every single time. But Beulah never made that mistake. Not once. Because Beulah did not come at Beth loud. She came at her quiet, invisible, patient in a way that is genuinely terrifying when you understand what it means. She does not threaten. She does not confront. She operates in the dark, moving money and influence and fear like chess pieces across a board that Beth and Rip did not even know they were sitting at. By the time her targets feel something is wrong, Beulah has already moved to her next phase. That is not a villain. That is a predator. And here is the part that should keep you awake. While Beth and Rip were pouring everything they had into saving their herd, while they were running on no sleep and raw desperation trying to stop the outbreak from swallowing the entire ranch, Beulah was not panicking alongside them. She was not watching nervously to see if her plan worked. She was quiet, calm, because she already knew it was working exactly the way she designed it. The disease was never meant to destroy them outright. It was a distraction, a controlled fire she set to pull their eyes toward the smoke while she quietly surrounded them on every side. By the time Beth looks up from the crisis, Beulah may already be everywhere. And then everything went wrong, all at once. The trailer for episode 5 shows us something that no amount of recap can fully prepare you for. Beth's face. Not the anger. Not the fury that we have seen 100 times before. This is something colder and more dangerous than anger. This is the specific moment when every piece clicks into place inside her mind and she understands not just what happened but exactly who made it happen and exactly why. That look means the war has already started. Beth just had not declared it yet. Rip is beside her. And the version of Rip Wheeler this episode is putting on screen is the most dangerous version this show has ever produced. Because Rip Wheeler has always been a man who speaks through action. Every hard decision he has ever made, every line he has ever crossed, it all circles back to one singular truth. He will burn the entire world down before he lets something happen to the people and the place he loves. And right now, both are under attack. This is not two people trying to manage a crisis anymore. The trailer makes that undeniably clear. This is two people who have decided the time for managing is over. They are going on offense. And the shift from survival mode to attack mode changes everything about how this conflict plays out because Beulah built her entire strategy around a Beth and Rip who were reacting. She never planned for a Beth and Rip who were hunting. But here is the question that changes everything. Is it already too late? This changes everything. And there is no going back. Because what episode 5 is really about underneath all the fire and fury and survival instinct is something far more devastating than a cattle outbreak or a land war. Beulah is not just trying to take their ranch. She is trying to take their belief that they are allowed to have something real. That after everything they have survived and lost and buried and rebuilt, they are still allowed to stand somewhere and call it theirs. This land in Texas was never just a business decision. It was a declaration. Beth and Rip standing on that soil and telling the entire world that they were still here, still standing, still building. And Beulah looked at that declaration and decided it needed to be destroyed. But there is one more piece to this that the trailer is only beginning to hint at. Jamie, his story has been kept quiet this season, almost deliberately contained, and that restraint is not an accident. Because Beulah does not destroy people with force, she destroys them with information. She finds the secret that cannot survive the light and she holds it until exactly the right moment. And if she has been digging into the Dutton family history the way everything suggests she has, then she has already found something. Something that Beth cannot afford to have exposed. Something that could turn this entire war on its head before Beth ever gets the chance to strike. The clock is running. Beulah's next move is already in motion. And episode 5 is the moment this show stops building tension and starts detonating it. Nobody is safe. Nothing is guaranteed. And the ranch that was supposed to be their beginning might just become their ending. Unless Beth gets there first. The worst part is not what Beulah did. The worst part is how long she waited to do it. Think about that for a second. She did not move the moment Beth and Rip arrived in Texas. She did not strike when they were at their most vulnerable, when they were still adjusting, still learning the land, still figuring out who their enemies were. She let them settle. She let them plant. She let them build just enough of a foundation that losing it would hurt as deeply as possible. Because that is how Beulah operates. She does not attack weakness. She waits for you to grow something you love and then she attacks that. And by the time Beth and Rip realized they were already inside her trap, the walls had been closing for months. Now let's talk about what the official synopsis is actually telling us, because there is a line buried in there that most people glossed over and it changes everything about how you read episode 5. The synopsis mentions Beulah's consolidation of power. Not her attempt to consolidate power. Her consolidation. Present tense. Ongoing. Already happening. Which means while Beth is just now figuring out the full picture of what Beulah did, Beulah is not sitting still waiting for a response. She is already executing the next layer of her plan. She has already moved. She is already winning ground that Beth does not even know she lost yet. That is the most terrifying sentence this show could put in front of us right now. Because it means Beth and Rip are not just behind. They are behind by a distance they cannot fully measure. And the only way to close that gap is to stop reacting and start thinking the way Beulah thinks. 3 moves ahead. 4 moves ahead. 10 moves ahead. And here is the brutal truth about that. Beth Dutton is one of the sharpest minds this show has ever put on screen. She is calculated and fearless, and she has outmaneuvered people who thought they had her cornered more times than anyone can count. But thinking the way Beulah thinks requires something Beth has never been particularly comfortable with. Patience. Restraint. The ability to absorb damage without immediately hitting back. And the trailer is telling us that Beth is already past that point. She is not in patient strategic mode. She is in war mode. Full throttle. No brakes. Which means she is playing the game Beulah wants her to play. Moving fast and emotional while Beulah moves slow and calculated. And that mismatch is exactly where episode 5 gets genuinely dangerous for Beth, because Beulah has been preparing for an aggressive Beth. She has been counting on it. She built her entire strategy around the certainty that when Beth finally figured out what was happening she would explode. And that explosion is exactly what Beulah needs to push her next move into place. So here is the real question that episode 5 is forcing us to ask. Can Beth Dutton be something she has never been before when it matters most? Can she absorb the rage and the grief and the fury of knowing that someone systematically dismantled everything she built, and instead of burning it all down in one furious charge, can she slow down, breathe, and be smarter than her own instincts? Because if she cannot, then Beulah already knows exactly how this ends. She wrote the ending before Beth even knew the story had started. But there is another dimension to this that goes far beyond strategy and chess moves and power plays. There is something deeply personal happening inside Beth Dutton in episode 5 that the trailer is only beginning to show us. Because when Beth found out about the outbreak, she did not just lose cattle. She lost something she cannot get back by slaughtering the herd or filing a lawsuit or exposing Beulah to the world. She lost the feeling that this place was safe. That this land was hers in a way that no one could take. And once that feeling is gone, once the place you called home starts to feel like a trap instead of a refuge, something breaks inside a person that is very hard to repair. Beth has felt that breaking before. In Montana. When everything fell apart the first time. And she rebuilt. She always rebuilds. But the look on her face in that trailer is not the look of someone preparing to rebuild. It is the look of someone who has decided that this time, before anything gets rebuilt, something has to burn. The only question left is what? And who? Here's what nobody is talking about. And it might be the most important thing in this entire episode. Rip Wheeler is not just a man in crisis right now. He is a man on the edge of becoming something that even he cannot fully control. And that is a sentence that should genuinely terrify you if you understand who Rip Wheeler is at his core. Because Rip has always been the anchor. Through every storm this show has thrown at Beth, through every moment where her rage threatened to outpace her judgment, Rip was the thing that kept her tethered. He was the one person who could put a hand on her shoulder and pull her back from the edge without saying a single word. He was her ground. Her gravity. But in episode 5, Rip is not the anchor anymore. He is the storm. And a Beth without an anchor and a Rip without restraint, moving together toward a single target with everything on the line, that is not just a dramatic moment for this show. That is a detonation waiting to happen. The trailer shows us flashes of what that looks like and none of it is measured. Here's what nobody is talking about. And it might be the most important thing in this entire episode. Rip Wheeler is not just a man in crisis right now. He is a man on the edge of becoming something that even he cannot fully control. And that is a sentence that should genuinely terrify you if you understand who Rip Wheeler is at his core. Because Rip has always been the anchor. Through every storm this show has thrown at Beth, through every moment where her rage threatened to outpace her judgment, Rip was the thing that kept her tethered. He was the one person who could put a hand on her shoulder and pull her back from the edge without saying a single word. He was her ground. Her gravity. But in episode 5, Rip is not the anchor anymore. He is the storm. And a Beth without an anchor and a Rip without restraint, moving together toward a single target with everything on the line, that is not just a dramatic moment for this show. That is a detonation waiting to happen. The trailer shows us flashes of what that looks like and none of it is measured immediately. Just to make them feel it. To make them understand that she holds the power now and that everything they do from this moment forward happens on her terms. That is the most sophisticated form of control there is. And Beth knows it. Which is why the race in episode 5 is not just about saving the herd or stopping the disease or even exposing what Beulah did to the bull at auction. The race is about information. Who finds what first? Who gets leverage before leverage gets used against them? If Beth can find what Beulah is hiding before Beulah weaponizes what she found on Jamie, then this war shifts completely. Beth gets the sword. Beth gets the power. Beth gets to dictate the terms. But if Beulah moves first, if she drops whatever she found about Jamie into the open before Beth can neutralize it, then everything Beth and Rip are fighting for becomes impossible to protect because they. The outside and the family from the inside. And nobody wins a two-front war when the enemy chose the timing of both battles. Episode 5 is not just the most critical episode of this season. It is the episode that decides what kind of show Dutton Ranch is going to be for the rest of its run. Because the choices Beth and Rip make here, the lines they cross or refuse to cross, the moves they make in fury versus the moves they make in calculation, all of it is going to define who these characters become going forward. And based on everything the trailer is showing us, based on the darkness in Beth's eyes and the silence in Rip's jaw and the quiet terrifying confidence in Beulah's every move, whatever happens in episode 5 is not going to leave anyone unchanged. The war is here. The damage is real. And the only thing left to find out is who is still standing when the smoke finally clears. Do not look away. EOF. Something is coming that this ranch has never seen before. And nobody is ready for it. Because up until now, every battle Beth and Rip have fought has had a visible enemy. Someone they could see. Someone they could name. Someone they could walk up to and look directly in the eye before the fight began. That is the kind of war Beth Dutton was built for. Direct. Raw. Personal. The kind where you know exactly who is trying to destroy you and you destroy them first. But episode 5 is introducing something fundamentally different and far more dangerous. The enemy is not just Beulah. The enemy is the system Beulah has built around Beth and Rip without them ever seeing it go up. And you cannot fight a system the same way you fight a person. You cannot grab it by the throat. You cannot corner it in a room. You cannot stare it down until it blinks. A system does not blink. A system does not feel fear. A system just keeps running the program it was designed to run until there is nothing left to consume. And Beulah built this system specifically to consume the Dutton Ranch. Think about every move she has made so far this season through that lens. The auction was not a random event. She positioned that bull deliberately knowing exactly where it would end up and exactly what it would carry on to the property. The disease outbreak was not an emergency. It was a scheduled event on her timeline. Every moment of panic Beth and Rip experienced, every sleepless night, every desperate decision they made while trying to save their herd, all of it was accounted for in Beulah's plan. She did not just predict how they would react. She designed the conditions that guaranteed those reactions. That is a level of control that goes beyond ruthless. That is the kind of cold architectural thinking that should make every single person watching this show deeply uncomfortable. Because here is what it means in practical terms heading into episode 5. Beth and Rip are not just behind in this fight. This is the moment the entire season has been building toward. And it is darker than anyone expected. Let's talk about what winning actually looks like for Beth and Rip in episode 5. Because winning is not simple anymore. It never was. But now it is genuinely complicated in a way that makes your stomach drop when you think it all the way through. Even if Beth exposes Beulah. Even if she finds the proof that the bull was deliberately infected and planted at that auction. Even if she takes that evidence to every authority and every platform available to her and destroys Beulah's reputation completely, the cattle are still dead. The herd is still gone. The months of work and investment and hope that went into building this ranch from the ground up are still lost. You cannot undo biological damage. You cannot bring back what the disease already took. And Beulah knew that going in. She chose this weapon specifically because even in defeat it leaves permanent damage behind. That is the kind of thinking that puts Beulah in a category entirely her own. She is not just playing to win. She is playing to make sure that even losing costs her enemy more than winning does. That is not strategy. That is cruelty elevated to an art form. And understanding that about her changes how you watch every scene she is in because you realize that nothing she does is ever as straightforward as it appears on the surface. Every visible move she makes is covering 3 invisible ones. Every moment of apparent weakness is a trap. Every concession she offers is a door she has already locked from the other side. So what does Beth do with an enemy like that? What does anyone do? You cannot outpatience someone who has been patient for years while you were still learning her name. You cannot outstrategize someone who already mapped your psychology and built a plan around your every instinct. The only thing you can do is find the one thing she did not account for. The one variable in her perfectly constructed plan that she could not predict because it is not a weakness or a strength but something stranger and more unpredictable than either. And for Beth and Rip, that variable has always been the same thing. Each other. Because Beulah studied Beth. She studied how Beth thinks and fights and reacts. She studied Rip's protective instincts and his willingness to act when everything is on the line. But studying two people individually is not the same as understanding what they become together. Beth and Rip are not just a couple. They are not just two strong people who love each other. They are something that functions differently as a unit than either of them does alone. They complete each other's blind spots. They sharpen each other's instincts. And when they are moving together with full clarity about who the enemy is and what needs to happen, They become something that very few people in this show's universe have ever been able to stop. Beulah may have underestimated that. She may have studied the individuals and missed the partnership. And if she did, that is the crack in her perfect plan.